Good afternoon. Welcome into the Senate Committee on Government Operations meeting, Thursday, April 2nd. Up first is a review of H 935. And also we're going to hear from Lauren Glenn Davidian and Tom Leopold from VAN, the Vermont Access Network and Community Radio. And Lauren is already seated, and good to see you again. Welcome in. I know we had longer floor sessions than we had anticipated the last couple of weeks. So today was the opposite. We had a very short floor, and we actually could have probably started at 1:30. But anyway, welcome in, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Lauren Glenn Davidian. I'm the Public Policy Director, CCTV, Center for Media and Democracy, and I represent Vermont Access Network and the Vermont Community Radio Network. We are here to brief you, update you on our FY27 budget request.
Yep. And
to request that you include us in your set of recommendations to Senate appropriations. This request was at one point in House Government Operations included in H 935, and then House Appropriations took it out of H 935 and voted it forward, not connected to that bill. So I don't have much comment on H 935 other than to say that, and I can move on with the request itself.
Could you give us an idea what the money was?
Yes, so that has not changed. The last year, Vermont Access Network received $1.35 million under the Secretary of State's budget.
Great.
This year, we were asked to join forces with the Vermont Community Radio Network. Vermont Access Network, I think, as you know, but I will restate, is 24 community media centers across the state. And the Vermont Community Radio Network is 9 of 10 low power radio stations that operate in the state. 3 or 4 of those which operate in conjunction with band members. We agreed and created a partnership. And so the FY27 request under the Secretary of State's office is for $1.89 million this year. 90,000 of that is for community radio, which has, of all its members, really one paid staff person in GDR and GDH. They're volunteer run. And so the 90,000 is to cover some salaries and equipment for those radio stations. Right. And the 1.8 million is for the 24 community media centers to address the decline in cable revenue, which this year is about 6%. The governor recommended 1.35 million in his budget. The House, in their, we feel very generously included an additional 540,000 for the full 1.89 request, and that's voted out of the House.
So the governor's had 1.3.
Yeah, 135. So the additional 540,000 is what we were working on the House side on. And ultimately what happened is that VAN's 1.8 was voted to be part of the regular budget.
Right.
And the 90,000 for radio is a one-time budget entry. So I'm here to just give you some of the highlights of why this is a good investment and what we're doing with the funds.
So before we get to that,
Yeah.
because I'm all ears on that, you said it was separated out from the budget and is traveling separately. What vehicle was it traveling in?
The 90,000 is included in the one-time budget, and I don't know what vehicle.
So it's part of the budget.
Budget. Amy could clarify.
Go ahead.
Amy Schellenberger, I represent VAN. It's all in the big bill. It had been in 935, but folks took it out of 935 and put it in the big bill. 450 in base, 90,000 in one. So it's in the budget.
Got it. So it's all in the budget.
It's in the House budget, yes.
Got it. So it's in Senate. Okay, great. Got it. So the way you described it sounded like it had gone in from some separate vehicle. So it's great.
Thank you for using the terms of art, Amy. The base budget is the 1.8 and the 90 is 1.5. Yes, so, as you know, we represent 24 community media centers. And what's interesting about these media centers is that we cover 94, and the radio stations, we cover 94% of the state's population in terms of reaching them for communication services. And again, to restate, we provide live hybrid meeting coverage. This was a pivot that we made during COVID and continue to provide this to at least 70% of the cities and towns in the state. We provide coverage of local news, weather, and emergency response. Primarily, that's our radio colleagues. Election forums and election results. We had a great town meeting here where we really covered the entire state and the town meetings that happened and the candidates and the ballot items that were voted on. We provide media education and hands-on skills for volunteers. In fact, it was cheese day today, and the young person who was wheeling out the cheese into the cafeteria, Nick, I took his picture with the cheese and he said, "Oh, saw my phone." He said, "CCTV, I've been an intern there for 3 years." And so that was great. I had not in the office that much, so I didn't know that. It was great. And we talked about how much it has meant to him. He's done a lot of work covering the homeless encampments and really going where no other media outlets really are deep diving. Well, very few. So a brave person with gaining a lot of skills. And once he's done here in April, we'll return to do that work. And we also provide extensive preservation of local video and radio archives. I think, as I've mentioned before in this room, CCTV alone has 50,000 artifacts dating back to the 80s that we're almost finished digitizing. And those are made available to the public for research, for opposition researchers come when somebody's running for president. That's been very common. Well, Howard Dean and Bernie Sanders. And then we have just records of all these meetings that are taking place, these community events. It's just quite remarkable to see the scope of what we've saved in catalog just at CCTV. So there's 24 centers that are engaged in this. And I think it's a very important community function. As I get older and I look back, I realize, wow, it's good to have these video records. So together, the PEG centers, the access management organizations, operate 80 plus channels and dozens of online outlets. And together, we produce 15,000 hours a year of local television. And our radio colleagues produce about 20,000 hours of locally made programming. And all of our programming is available on the air and online all the time. So the challenges that we face, as I mentioned, is a decline in our traditional revenue sources, which is cable TV. People are, we use the expression cut the cord, but it's really a misnomer because people aren't cutting the cord, they're just changing the cord. So they're moving from cable to a la carte services. And as you all know, we all have a variety of services that have no public benefit attached to it, unlike cable TV, which has this 5% cable franchise fee set aside for public purposes, which has been our primary revenue source since the 1980s. And of course, I don't need to mention to you the increase in expenses that we're looking at is on the order of course, the cost of living, but probably more in the order of 8% a year. So we've been losing revenue and our expenses have been increasing. So the budget gap that we face coming up this year is on the order of $2.5 million. Next year it will be on the order of $3 million. And we're not asking the legislature to cover that entire gap. We have other revenue sources that we have been developing. Fees for service, sponsorships, underwriting, we've gotten quite creative in that way. We'll be able to speak also to some of that. And I wanted to just also underscore that across the state, there are these marvelous case studies I just wanted to highlight. So in Brattleboro, which is celebrating 50 years of public access television, 44 community producers are active. They produced 1,300 programs last year. and 250,000 YouTube views. With CCTV, we have about 500,000 online viewers. We covered more than 500 municipal meetings. And as I mentioned, we have this vast archive of 53,000 programs. GNet, which is in Bennington, produced almost 1,000 programs, and they have 300,000 online video views. So people are watching these programs, and not only are they watching, but they're making, and they're becoming involved in the critical diversity work that is necessary during this time more than ever. And in Northwest Access TV, which is one of our rock stars in terms of sporting events, they produce more than 1,000 local programs, and they have about 160,000 online views. So, challenges. Legislative support helps Vermonters to overcome the fact that we have fewer local media options for Vermonters. Emergent times require us to get words out quickly to our communities, ranging from weather to government threats to our neighbors. There's a rapid decline of cable TV, rising business expenses, including healthcare, labor, capital costs, music licensing, and then the rise of artificial intelligence generated news and information, which makes it harder for people to know what is reliable and true. And we are clearly reliable and true. And in short, our request will help us to add to local and radio TV's impact as providers of local meetings, news, interviews, address the decline in legacy cable TV revenue, help us meet the cost of doing business, and ensure that community media can remain a free and accessible outlet for Vermonters to get their news and local community coverage. At just $3 per Vermonter reached by our services, we believe this is an investment that the state can be proud of. Thank you for your consideration of our FY27 budget request, $1.89 million.
Does anyone have questions, Senator White?
Well, I don't really have any questions, but I'm very supportive of fully funding. And I hope we can include it in our appropriations letter. My understanding of the change to go on to streaming services, my understanding is that's not a live bill at this point. I don't know if that's a correct way to characterize it. I do hope we can consider it in the future though, because streaming services are billion-dollar companies at this point. So if they're not able to eat a little bit of that, I think it's unlikely we would see a subscription fee change for the average Vermonter, because to drill down to the maybe 200,000+ people who maybe use any individual streaming service in our state would be very hard. So I expect they would probably just eat that cost, but they would argue they would not. So I'm very supportive of that as well. And I just want to note, Jam, amazing. So critical for our community and like shared memory. And they do podcasts now. They do digital online content that's like for your phone, for mobile, which is like a whole nother area.
Summer camp.
They do summer camp. They do everything, and we're very grateful for them. And on top of that, we have Gannett, if I'm saying it correctly.
We have
Jeanette. We have Jeanette. We got the Woodstock one. We got in Windsor on Air. We got Okemo.
Zappa, Windsor on Air, Woodstock Channel 8, and Jam.
And Jeanette.
Where's that?
Manchester.
Yeah, that's not our district.
Okay, well, I've done programs with them before, so maybe.
You may have, but it's not Windsor
I
District.
think they serve West.
So we have 5 in Windsor District alone, which funny dovetail onto Becca's.
Yes, that was my comment.
We are incredibly supportive of this. I also think as we look going forward, I would hope as you look at your sustainability, that you look at some regionalization and some combining of forces. I'm not sure that we, as your revenue shrink, until we find another revenue source that's sustainable. It might make some sense because some of these stations are very small and within driving distance of each other, not very far. It might make some sense to regionalize and have a stronger single entity than 5 individual ones in one county.
So I think some of that, I think you make a good point. We're always looking at that. When we had this study done a few years ago, that was one of the key pieces of the study.
I remember.
There is a lot of cooperation across the access management organizations. We pool resources, for example, for logging and advocacy. And then you'll find, I think, Windsor on Air and Woodstock are run by the same person.
Yes.
So,
Well,
I mean,
there are some aspects of back hall, but then they're also.
yeah, and so there's an
Paid
economy of,
person.
there's economy of scale there in terms of having a coordinated leadership. I know that Patrick has worked pretty hard from Okemo to,
He was here yesterday.
yeah, that's right.
And the chapel was sitting in the window.
To rally the forces and to bring purchasing discussions together and sharing staff together. So I think regionally, we definitely are looking at that all the time. And then I think to your point about a revenue source, we're very sensitive to the fact that there is a limited amount of money that the legislature is able to allocate. Good times are difficult and that we are currently not connected to a revenue source. And so we're seriously looking at that for next year. And that there are some possible options with excise tax on streaming might generate roughly $8 million a year, of which we could use part in this state. So I think that that's something we need to seriously still and present to you. So we're working on that. Mindful of this, really the economic scenario. And
I just don't see them. I just don't see them. If it's like $15 a month for Netflix and we put it on them, I don't see them going and then raising individually Vermonters.
it's not like,
And excise tax, I think would be a piece of cake, but anyway. I think what both Becca and I and probably all the rest of us want to voice is how important these local access stations are in our communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody-
For emergency
There's no doubt
services.
about that.
Yeah.
You might have to be a better salesperson than I think. The excise tax.
Yeah, maybe easiest cake isn't the way we pitch it.
We'll see. We'll be discussed next year.
Okay, can I get Tom up? So, joining us from Rutland is Tom Lakepole, who runs PEG TV, which is in my district, and, Tom knows I fully support what he does 7 days a week, and, I've taken advantage of that to some degree.
Good.
So, welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Colmar. I won't take up too much time. I just want to say we very much appreciate your support here in Rutland. And I echo everything that Lauren Glenn just said. And just a small snippet of one of the big things we've done recently is a local town meeting we covered live. And we had the results first, essentially. And other media uses us for a hub. Vermont Public was here. WCAX took our information and read it on the air and gave us credit. Actually said these numbers are from PEG TV in Rutland. So that alone is invaluable. We also do the Rutland City Halloween Parade live every year, which is essentially our most watched event. We get feedback from around the world because we stream that live. We also put all of our content out for free on YouTube and on our website. Right now, we're in a position where in a few months, our YouTube channel is going to reach 1 million views. So that's pretty substantial. We cover the local select board meetings. We cover the Rutland City Board of Aldermen meeting live. We cover the Rutland City School Board meeting live. We have some field producers that cover sports on a regular basis. They go all around the county. We try to get different mixes of schools in there. I've been here it'll be 31 years in May, and I can't stress enough how crucial this organization is to our community as far as unedited content and governmental information reaching the community for free. We are losing, like Lauren Glenn said, we are losing between 8 and 10% of our cable revenue every quarter, which is very substantial. And our cost, like everyone else, is going up. So I would like to see the funding model change. I mean, I think that is ultimately what needs to happen, but we truly appreciate your support in the meantime until we can get over this hurdle.
Any questions for Tom? Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
And there's a question, Tom, what does PEG stand for?
Well, back in the early days, my executive director at the time, when we were looking for a web domain name, he chose PEG TV, which is the acronym for Public Education and Government Television, is basically the
Okay.
name of
Oh,
all
and
of it.
I figured it was public, but education and
Yeah.
government.
So he chose that, and we just kept it as a thing, even though it represents everybody, really, the PEG stations, but we kind of adopted it, so.
And how many public access stations do you have in Rutland County?
We have one. We encompass all three of the letters. I have a government channel, a public channel, and an education channel. So we basically serve greater Rutland County. There are a few small towns that don't designate us as their access provider, but we still do what we can for them when they need us.
It's great. Well, it's wonderful to watch this network evolve. It's just been really exciting to see, and I wish you well on finding a revenue source. We've been trying to find a revenue source for housing as well, and it's a tough time. I don't think the excise tax is going to be easy. I didn't mean to suggest that, but that is a good spot to start. I think it would be great to obviously get some of those ways and means involved in your work as you look at the sustainability, because all of them love their access network stations, and I'm sure they'd be willing to help figure out possible revenues.
Thank you. Rutland is the largest of our access management organizations in the state.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's geographically vast. You're vast, Tom. Provide amazing services.
How many employees, Tom, do you have?
I have 9. I have 5 on the inside and 4 field producers that go out and cover meetings, games, and special events, which we are very active on a regular basis. If you watched all of our content that we've been putting on YouTube since 2009, it would take you 10 years almost to watch all of it. So we're very, very active down here.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And that's true all over. So, it's, you may, there's never a dull moment at Jam or.
That's true. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, I won a Jam award this year.
Did you?
Yeah.
Whoa.
But
Congrats.
Joe Major did win Best Handshake, so that was.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. And thank you very much, Chairman.
You're very welcome.
Diversity Committee.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is the OPR bill, 8588, and we're expecting Jennifer Colin and Lauren Hebert to join us. We had a request from someone representing the pharmacies to speak about possibly amending the bill, but that person I don't think is going to be with us today. But we can have more testimony from the Office of the Secretary of State as we move forward on this bill. And then I'm still puzzled with this, but we're going to hear from Chris Ford, a labor rep from the United Federation of Police Officers. If you recall, yesterday, we took testimony from the Randolph Police Department about moving from Group F to Group G. Chris is asking us to move them from Group F to Group C. And yet, yesterday, in direct testimony, we had the police chief and the select board member make it pretty obvious they didn't want a Group C because there's a difference in retirement age. And anyway, he's going to come in, but I'm not inclined to go along with that. I think we made our decision for the most part yesterday on that. So, and I think it would be a fiscal note. Well, maybe not. I don't. We're talking 5 people. No, three. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? And we'll be back hopefully with both Jennifer and Lauren from the OPR bill, and